Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Teisenghausen. It's April 28th today. Here's the top news at this moment. Putin spoke to Russian senators and said they should be softer with bans for Russians. See how caring he is. As if it's not him who's ruled Russia for 25 years and started a catastrophic war that's now causing internet blackouts. It's the bad senators imposing bans, while the kind Tsar gave them a little scolding for it. Watch this video and also take note. I've noticed that lately this version of Putin talks quite strangely, with a lisp. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Take a look.
Зацикливаться только на запретах, ограничениях, мерах выработки новых каких-то мер наказания для нарушителей. Ну, конечно, вроде бы это нужно, надо защищать интересы потребителей во всех смыслах этого слова. Но только на этом зацикливаться – это контрпродуктивно. Излишние барьеры тормозят развитие. Это все явления временные, проходящие. А Россия вечна.
How caring. But it's you Botoxed jellyfish, who brought about all these bans. You've been clinging to power with your gnarled fingers for 25 years. It's you who rewrote the constitution for yourself, and you started this senseless war that you just don't know how to get out of now. He says Russia will last forever. It won't. You're the one who's going to ruin it, Putin. After the war, problems will simply tear Russia apart from the inside, as has happened many times in history. It'll fall apart in a heartbeat, fall apart just like the Soviet Union. Remember how party bigwigs and die-hard communists shouted and said the Soviet Union would also live forever? They made those claims from the podium, and those Soviet films, remember, and communism will come to the whole world, and all states on the planet will become communist. Yeah, sure, and then they successfully plundered the party's gold, fled abroad, while less fortunate citizens stood in line for bush legs just to keep from starving to death. It's also interesting that Putin called for being softer after his rating plummeted to a record low in 8 years. Now Putin will order not to completely shut down the internet and will once again become the savior of Russians. By the way, in Russia, the Higher School of Economics deleted a report on business confidence falling to a minimum for Putin's entire reign. So material started coming out saying that business isn't confident about tomorrow at all, and not just on the Higher School of Economics website. And then they suddenly decided what, that the truth can be published? No, the FSB called and Russian business confidence immediately went up. And everything became wonderful at once. By the way, the residents of Tuapse don't quite agree that everything in Russia has become wonderful. First of all, the consequences of previous strikes on the Tuapse refinery have become known. 24 fuel tanks were destroyed and 4 more were damaged. Huge tanks. And after yesterday's strike, the vacuum distillation unit at the Slavnefteyanos refinery was damaged. That's it, goodbye. This refinery is out of commission, one of the largest in Russia. Installing new tanks in Tuapse will take months simply. Repairing the vacuum distillation unit at Slavneft under sanctions is practically impossible. And today, for the third time in 2 weeks, they hit Tuapse. The fate of Tuapse, it seems, is sealed. Don't even bother trying to fix it. Just don't. And here is a video for you. Take a look. Go, it's gonna smell really bad for you, little one, really bad, little one. Apparently residents of Russian cities didn't imagine the war like this. Well, now here it is. Take a look, you can see it right from your window. Moreover, local authorities reported that the fire was caused by falling drone debris. Those debris again. I don't know, maybe it's time for Marvel to make a movie where in the far, far future, the most destructive artifact in the universe is found on Earth. A piece of a Ukrainian drone that can wipe out entire galaxies just by falling. And now, an important conclusion regarding Tuapse. The third time, Russia is not protected. I understand you could miss it once, you could miss it a second time, but this is the third time in 2 weeks. Surely by the third time, I don't know, you could have brought air defense systems there to Tuapse. No, they missed it for the third time. Someone from Tuapse recorded a video. Take the air defense systems from around Putin's residence and so on. Well, there are 27 towers around his residence, and I think there are many more now. I'll tell you more. The more strikes hit Tuapse, the more air defense systems they'll pull toward Putin until they've dragged them there from all over Russia. You know, like a circular fence of air defense towers, and in the middle, some main Putin tower with the eye of Putin on it, like Sauron's. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It helps with promotion, and together we will fight Putin's propaganda. So be sure to subscribe. Another interesting point is that Russian TV completely ignored this topic. There was no Tuapse, no fire in Tuapse, everything's fine, there are other topics, but no Tuapse. State television just flat out hid it. Well, why? We're not going to show that. Neither Solovyov nor Skabeeva brought up this topic. Putin hasn't commented until today. Today, let's say it wasn't him who commented either. We'll get to that. There'll be an interesting comment. So Putin too, for him it doesn't exist. Tuapse topics, why? By the way, Putin hasn't commented on awkward topics since the very beginning, since he was brought to power. Just today, he ordered the head of the emergency ministry, Alexander Kurenkov, to go to Tuapse. His press secretary, Peskov, reported that. Besides, Peskov stated that, now this is a total masterpiece. The oil in the Tuapse storage tanks hit by drones was meant for export, meaning, by attacking these oil depots, Kiev is worsening the fuel shortage on global markets and causing their destabilization. Oh dear, 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 dear. All right, of course, we won't do it anymore. Well, sure, since it's destabilization, Tuapse will burn to the ground. First Tuapse will burn, then other oil depots and ports. Take your occupiers out of Ukraine and then it will all stop. No? Then you'll have black rain over all of Russia. Actually, Putin has avoided commenting on awkward topics his whole life. A first-class coward, if you'll excuse my French. Remember the Kursk submarine? That phrase of his with a maniac smile, it sank. I think, well, how could he? You saw... Oh, that was Putin's first year in power. The first year, and he came out with that, and everyone was like, oh, well, it happens, he's just unhinged, no big deal. So while Russian submariners were breathing their last oxygen, Putin was riding a jet ski in Sochi. He didn't even cut his vacation short, and even then it was clear that a monster had been brought to power. To bring Putin to power, to create a demand for a strong hand, to justify the war in Chechnya, back then the FSB, Putin's buddies, were blowing up apartment buildings with Russians inside. I'll remind you, back then more than 300 people died. For this truth, which was revealed by Alexander Litvinenko, among others, a former FSB officer, he was poisoned with polonium. Well, if you look at the sequence of events, August 1999, Putin becomes prime minister. Literally a month later, September of 1999, the apartment bombings in Russia, the start of the Second Chechen War, a sharp rise in Putin's popularity. Remember him saying, waste the terrorists in the outhouse, and so on. December 1999, Putin takes power as acting president. Then March, May, he's already being elected in 2000. And in August 2000, the Kursk, and Putin says it sank. I mean, he was a monster even then. Back then, the facts about the FSB being behind the bombings emerged. It was clear to everyone who had been brought to power. By the way, friends, in every episode we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine who are performing an incredible feat right now. They stopped a massive Russian army and are giving them a real thrashing. Today we're continuing the fundraiser for the Freedom of Russia Legion, which is fighting for Ukraine. The funds are for repairing damaged equipment and buying drones. Legion fighters are currently fighting in almost all the hotspots. And another very important point, Legion fighters are not only hitting Russians on the front lines, but also deep in the rear. The Legion commander, the legendary Caesar, has recorded an appeal to you. Please, take a look.
Дорогой Борис Тизенгаузен, уважаемые подписчики его канала, от имени бойцов Легиона Свобода России я хочу поблагодарить вас за всю ту помощь, которую вы нам не раз оказывали. Сейчас я снова обращаюсь к вам за помощью. Нам нужны средства на ремонт наших автомобилей, нам нужны средства на закупку БПЛА. Мы будем вам очень благодарны и в этот раз. Вместе с вами мы обязательно победим. Слава Украине! Свобода России!
Let's help the Legion. The donation link is in the description of this video. There's Mono and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. And if you're watching on another channel, there's always a QR code in the corner. It also leads to the fundraiser. And a huge thank you to everyone who supports Ukraine, from me and from hundreds of our warriors whom you've already helped. You are simply incredible. The new MSU supercomputer, which is managed, I'll remind you, this supercomputer is managed by structures linked to Putin's daughter, Katerina Tikhonova. Or this woman, as Putin calls his daughters, these women. Well, this supercomputer turned out to be built on smuggled chips from the American company NVIDIA. A source from the Insider reports this. Well, listen, did anyone even doubt it? What was it Putin said? Snip, snap, and we'll just snatch their technology. It's never happened before. And here we go again. Remember when, about 15 years ago to Medvedev, they presented a Russian smartphone. He asked then, is this our smartphone? Who answered him? Chemezov back then? Ours. And the parts in assembly? Anyway, let me show you this video now. I found it. This video right here is just the whole Russian Federation. Look, Chemezov is presenting the Russian smartphone to Medvedev.
На меня просто обрушилось большое количество обращений. Говорит, где этот самый российский смартфон? Как я понимаю, вы его сделали.
Это первый у нас смартфон российский, который мы создали. Это стопроцентно российское изобретение. Здесь у нас...
А детали?
Детали, к сожалению, иностранные. И сборку пока мы ведем в Сингапуре.
Yes, quite a fable, Medvedev and the smartphone. One wants to ask, 15 years have passed, so how's that Russian smartphone doing? Is it all finished yet? Maybe the components are Russian now? Maybe it's assembled in Russia? Actually, does anyone even have a Russian smartphone? Medvedev apparently drank himself into a stupor without ever waiting for that smartphone. And in Russia, a series of mysterious deaths. Medvedev hasn't stepped out of a window yet, but Russian top managers have started jumping out one by one. In Russia, under mysterious circumstances, the 20th top manager since the start of the war has died, and there are actually many more. The series of deaths of top managers and businessmen that has swept Russia continues. Near Volgograd, while fishing on the Volga, 42-year-old Sergei Loiter drowned, who from 22 to 24 held the position of commercial director of Yandex. This Loiter's body was found, and there are other victims as well. Another man named Sergei Nazarov, who was a developer from Volgograd, plus a driver and a bodyguard. Somehow the boat capsized on the river, you see, and all three suddenly that. Loiter's body was found first. The deceased had head injuries. Tentatively, they either capsized or hit something. You see, you're on a boat and you hit something so hard that all three of them just were gone. So, Loiter became at least the 20th top manager to die in Russia under mysterious circumstances. And in September of last year, this case really stuck with me, the headless body of the CEO of a potash and magnesium salt mining company, Alexei Sinitsyn, was found. Some strange things happened there. According to sources close to the investigation, the theory of suicide was being considered. Well, indeed, they find a decapitated corpse without a head under a bridge. Suicide, of course. What else? I mean, there's a whole series of them. In August, Dmitry Osipov, chairman of the board of Uralkali, Mikhail Kenin, founder of the main shareholder of Samolet, Russia's largest developer. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's also a huge number of sudden deaths from heart attacks and other supposedly natural causes. In general, the peak of these mysterious deaths in Russia occurred in 2022. It's a whole graveyard of them. The head of the transport service of Gazprom Invest, former vice president of Gazprom Bank Avev, Sergei Protosenya, former manager of Novatek, a huge number, and also, at that same time, the chairman of the board of Lukoil, Ravil Maganov, fell from a window of the Central Clinical Hospital of the Presidential Administration. Vladimir Nekrasov, who took his place, died a year later from acute heart failure. Some strange and terrible disease is mowing down top managers. Well, top managers in Russia. In a large company, they aren't just managers. They hold very sensitive information. Assets, schemes, foreign accounts, sanctions routes, losses, internal conflicts, and also very sensitive information about where, to whom, and to which jurisdictions money is being moved. It's especially sensitive when it concerns Putin's inner circle and family. And the second point, the war became a trigger for the redistribution of property. That is, in wartime, assets are very harshly redistributed in Russia. I mean, these are the same gangsters from the 90s around Putin, only now they're in power alongside Putin. As a rule, behind any large business in Russia stands one security structure or another. So when a competitor needs to be removed, a struggle ensues between these security structures. And also, perhaps the most important factor is fear. I mean, these kinds of exemplary executions where people just walk out of a window at the Presidential Administration Hospital, it shows everyone else that in Russia, anything is possible. Today, you're a successful top manager flying on a private jet to your villa somewhere in France, and tomorrow you just walk out of a window at the Presidential Administration Hospital, and that's it. Total fear is the key to submission. So I don't rule out that such show executions happen periodically in Russia, so everyone else stays silent in their stalls. Now let's talk about the total fear of Putin himself. The authorities might drastically shorten the Victory Day parade in Moscow. This year's Victory Day parade might happen without military hardware. Only marching columns will cross Red Square. The number of guests will drop from the usual thousands to just hundreds, and the entire ceremony might take less than an hour. Propaganda will, of course, claim this was the original plan, that shortening the parade has nothing to do with threats of any kind, but you and I understand perfectly well. A couple hundred occupiers will run across Red Square, I don't know, glancing up at the sky. Behind them, the heelman rushes on his 10-centimeter heels with 100 bodyguards in 3 rings around him, and there's your parade and express parade. It's strange, by the way, that no one has suggested to Putin yet holding an underground parade. Can you imagine? I mean, it's a disgrace. The flyover was cancelled, and now there's no hardware. Where's the hardware, one wants to ask. Where did the hardware go? Where are all those Armada tanks? Where is all of it? Putin. And more on total fear, but this time for Russians. In Voronezh yesterday, the first sentence was handed down in a criminal case over the symbols of a non-existent international Satanism movement. I mean, the pretext was something like a local took a photo in a pentagram hoodie, and so they slapped him with a sentence. The most interesting part, Satanism. My team and I looked into it. This topic takes up a significant portion of the Russian media landscape. But people in European countries and the US don't even know that, apparently everywhere. This Satanism is widespread. If they watched Russian channels, they'd find out. And there for a long time now, the topic of Satanism has had many segments dedicated to it. They're using a very interesting technique in Russia. You'd think, what does Satanism have to do with it? Or this non-existent international, what is it, Society of Satanists or whatever it's called? Why this made-up story? But deep down, it's not about Satanism, it's about manufacturing this kind of internal enemy, but one you can't touch. I mean, when the state has nothing to say about failures, coffins, and poverty, they start shifting the conversation to mysticism. We're not fighting Ukraine or the West, we're fighting Satanism. The most important thing is that it's a pretty good way to distract Russians from real problems. Don't ask why there are no roads, healthcare, money, or a future. Look, Satanists are everywhere. Don't ask why your children are dying in the war. Well, to be precise, croaking in the war, because for those who go to kill Ukrainians, that's the only way. Look, the West is decaying. Satanism is moving from there toward us. So, meanwhile, in Russia, even those who want to go to war for money are running out. Therefore, Russian universities have been given a quota for sending students to the drone systems forces. The plan is unofficial, but it must be fulfilled. Various universities are resorting to different tricks to meet this quota. And now students at one of Russia's key oil and gas universities have been urged to turn in friends and relatives to the drone forces. There it is. At Ufa State Petroleum Technological University, one of Russia's key oil and gas schools, students were urged to bring friends and relatives to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. According to one of the publication's subscribers, students were informed about this in a student chat, meaning, bring your friends, sign them up, and I quote, if an acquaintance, friend, brother, or anyone else you know wants to sign a contract or is thinking about it, then bring them to our university, let them do it through us. So it's coming to the point where in Russia soon the only way to earn any money or pay off a loan will be to send a relative to war. In the poorest regions, this has already been the only way for a long time. And you know, the horror of this whole devilish plan is that a family sending a relative to war actually wants them to die there. Do you understand? Because if they die there and it's proven, the family will receive huge payouts by Russian standards. But even these doomed souls are running out, so they're recruiting students. And on top of that, the payouts for signing a contract have been cut by almost 3 times. The treasury is empty, my lord. And here's a news item I simply couldn't pass by. Textbooks edited by Medvedev have all been made mandatory for schools. The federal list of textbooks approved for Russian schools has finally been updated with social studies manuals for grades 9 through 11, the editor-in-chief of which was the deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev. I mentioned this news when it was just being discussed, when it was only an idea, but now it's been officially approved. The corresponding order has been signed. Medvedev said these textbooks are meant to broaden horizons. Russian school children sure got lucky. Now they'll learn how to make a moonshine still from an IV drip and 2 plastic bottles. Just a ton of useful tips from Medvedev. How to last all night on a single flask. 30 underground spots where they sell alcohol to minors 24/7. Dressing with style. A DIY Dr. Evil costume. Medvedev can teach that too. Well, friends, take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. subscribe to this channel. Don't forget. And I'm asking you, please, let's help the Legionnaires. The donation link is in the description of this video. Our help right now for them is very much needed. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.